Today, I'm honored to welcome a mentor of mine, Sandee Sgarlata. Sandee is a two-time award-winning author, certified life coach, professional speaker, retired U.S. national and international figure skating coach, gold medalist in ice dancing, Reiki Master Teacher, and has spent the past 20 years helping people create lasting change in their lives. She is also the host of the Happiness Solved podcast, which is ranked in the top 0.5% globally. Sandee, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lauren. So grateful to be here and to see you come full circle and to be interviewing me today. So it's really awesome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you're here. I'd love for you to share more of your story with us. What led you to embark on your happiness journey to then become known as America's happiness coach?
I was thinking about taking that down. It was kind of something when I first started my podcast that I was like, I want to be known as America's happiness coach. So I claimed it. And now it's just kind of stuck. It was more of something that I just was like, because of my brand and everything. But, it's funny that you asked that, because somebody else the other day said, it's kind of interesting that you have this happiness podcast and happiness books, and my whole brand is about happiness. And it's probably because that's the one thing that I want more than anything in my life. And so what we want mostly, for me, I've just engulfed my whole life around it, because that is something that I want so badly every single day. And my journey really started 34 years ago when I hit rock bottom. I was at a very low point in my life. I had never dealt with all of the pain and tragedy that I experienced as a child. And, when you shove stuff under, or like I like to say, like, I went around it, I went over it, under it, and I never went through the pain. And so what happened was I ended up hitting rock bottom with drug abuse. And so that got me on this quest of just personal development. People joke, oh, you went from a junkie to a self-help junkie. I'm like, yeah, I kind of did. Right. And when I say drugs, I was doing cocaine. Like, that was bad drug. But, I wasn't into the hardcore stuff. I mean, cocaine is bad enough, but it wasn't, it could have gotten a lot worse, put it that way. Had I not stopped when I did, it probably would have gotten much worse. And so once I found the whole personal development, self-help, genre with all the books and the workshops, I just became obsessed. And I was like a sponge, and I just started learning, because I started having little glimpses where you felt really good, but it wasn't sustainable. And so I've just been on this quest to find this sustainable happiness. And for a very long time, I thought it was a pursuit. I thought it was a destination, because so often so many people do. And I think that's why I was so compelled to write a book and start a podcast, because so many people have this, well, once I get that promotion, I'll be happy. Or once I get the perfect partner in life, I'll be happy. Or once I lose 20 pounds, or, once I fill in the blank. But it's not a destination, it's a journey. And so I'm bringing my listeners and my audience with me, because I'm in that quest to try to find as much happiness in my life as I possibly can. And it's a practice. It's something that I practice sometimes every minute of every day, sometimes every hour, sometimes every 6 hours. Like, every day is different. Some days I'll go through a whole day and I'm just happy as can be all day. And then other days you're like, whoop, you get hit upside the head and you're like, okay, reset. Where's the reset button?
Right.
So,
In those
so
moments,
that's really
time to do the work, time to focus in on the process that you've developed that helps you maintain your peak happiness. And I really align with that of, we all have coping mechanisms. And so to change that from choosing drugs to instead choosing personal development and happiness is so powerful.
Well, it was the last resort. sometimes your back is put up against the wall and you have no choice, and I was very lucky that I wasn't in trouble with the law. I was in trouble with my fiance, So when I say my back was up against the wall, it was like pick and choose, like, what's it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
And I chose my fiance and to get clean. And it was by far the best decision. It was definitely something that happened for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, a great experience. And it put me on the trajectory that I've been on for 34 years. So,
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to be here talking more about it. So your most recent book is titled Happiness Solved: Climbing 100 Steps, which I can personally recommend. There she is. To anyone looking to achieve inner peace and happiness. Can you share more on what 100 steps metaphorically represents in your pursuit of happiness?
oh, I haven't talked about this in a long time because the book came out 4 years ago. And I love that. And I wrote the book before I added the climbing 100 steps. And it was actually a coach of mine that said, that's such a great metaphor. And what it is, I talk about, the book is a mini memoir. It's a self-improvement and a workbook. And so I have 4 chapters, which is just my mini story. And I only wrote about my story just to demonstrate that, we all have had hardships, and no matter what you've gone through, you can learn to find some peace and happiness. So the last time I remember really being happy as a child was on this beautiful day. I got called home early. My parents were out of town for the weekend. I got called home early. I was staying with a friend. I was brought home by boat because we lived on the Severn River, which is outside of Annapolis. And it was quicker to bring me home by boat. And so they brought me home by boat, and there was 100 steps that went from the dock up to the house. And me and my girlfriend were running up the 100 steps. And it was kind of one of those things, because I was an athlete. I think I just loved that climb. And when I got to the top of the 100 steps, that's when I found out that my brother had passed away. And it was just a very tragic turning point in my life. And so that's kind of where the climbing 100 steps came from. It doesn't mean that you have to climb 100 steps to be happy or anything like that. Right. It's just simply a metaphor for, that was the last time that I felt really happy. It was when I was 12 years old, until I, made that big leap of faith in my life and really got my act together.
Yeah. Wow, Sandee, my heart is with you. And I think grief and loss are some of the hardest emotions to process. They can be so painful. And these events, these challenging life events, are what people start sweeping under the rug, like you were referring to, that eventually led you to need to begin this quest to happiness for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, what do you think it is that's stopping people from being happy?
Well, it does take some effort. And I think that people, generally speaking, in order to grow, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And a lot of people don't want to feel that uncomfortableness. It's not easy. No matter what, and I'm no different. I know that I probably eat too many carbs, right? And this is something really, really minute, but I'm just dumbing it down, right?
Yeah.
To demonstrate that we all have this, right?
Right.
It's uncomfortable. The thought of eliminating carbs or removing carbs from my diet really makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to. I want to still eat my carbs. I want my cake and eat it too, right? Some people may have destructive habits, whether it's on your phone too much, or could be gambling, alcohol, working out, sex, all of those things. The thought of not having that in your life is so uncomfortable that they just keep doing it, because it's easier to keep doing it than the pain and the uncomfortableness that it takes in order to take that leap and to eliminate that thing from your life. That's a more extreme case. I think, generally speaking, it comes down to a choice that we make every single second of every single day. And you have to be aware. You have to practice self-awareness. Like it's all a practice. Practice self-awareness, practice self-love, practice spirituality. It's all a practice. And it's a commitment, right? One of my coaches said, in life, we don't get what we want. We get what we're committed to. And while you want to be happy, that's great. But are you committed to doing the work that it takes in order to, and we're not talking, it's a lot of work. It's just a consciousness. It's just a choice that you make every single day.
And awareness.
And if you just do a little bit every single day and try to get 1% better every day, my gosh, after 30 days, you're going to be a lot better and things are going to be a lot better in your life. It's just taking that action. You have to take action. It's not going to happen automatically. Life is supposed to be hard. I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubble. Life is difficult. Life can be very difficult sometimes. And if you do all of this and you're able to shift your perception of the things that are going on around you, it can be the most amazing experience you'll ever have.
I'm with you. It is a choice and a commitment. And I think, people say happiness seems or appears to come much easier to some than others. But I agree that it is because they choose to be happy. And sure, some people's lives seem easier on the surface or they haven't faced as many challenges. But the overall mood and theme and energy is choosing to see the glass half full.
Yeah.
Choosing to be happy, choosing to grow from what you've been through.
Yeah. Can I expand on what you just said?
Please.
So you just said, some people have been through things that are worse than others or whatever, right? Here's the thing. If the worst thing that's ever happened to you, I don't know, let's just say you got fired from a job and getting fired from your job was the worst thing that's ever happened to you, then that's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And you can't compare it to somebody else's trauma, right? Because it's all our perception of the world that we're living in and the experiences that we have as an individual. And so you get fired from a job, that's the worst thing that's ever happened. You get a new job, you get fired from that job, and you're like, oh, okay, I've been down this road before. Okay, so what can I learn from this? Can I learn from it? Right? All of a sudden, that's not the worst thing that's ever happened. But then your dog dies. Now that's the worst thing that's ever happened. You see what I'm saying? And what happens is we start to build resilience. And that's how we grow in life. And so I only say that so that people don't try to minimize things that they've been through, because if it's the worst thing you've ever been through, it's the worst thing you've ever been through. There's many things that I think are horrible that I have not experienced, thank God. But people who have been through that and they're like, oh my God, I could never imagine losing a sibling. That's horrible. Like, I feel like that's, you know what I'm saying? It's all that perspective. Like for me, I lost a sibling, but I think what this person's gone through is worse. But then she looks at me and says, well, what you've gone through is right.
Right.
Because it's all perception.
It's all perception. And no one is going to view the same sequence of events in the same way because they've been through other things that they may believe to be more challenging or less challenging based on how they perceived the experience they went through.
Right. Exactly. So
I want to touch on failure. Speaking of job loss, or difficult, challenging situations in life. Failure is a part of life and can often lead to feelings of unhappiness. How do you recommend dealing with failure?
Failure, it's one of those topics. I actually was interviewing somebody yesterday for my show, and they're like, I don't believe there's no such thing as failure. So it depends on who you talk to. Being an athlete, there's lots of failures. Being an entrepreneur, we fail all the time. For me, I choose to perceive failure as a good thing, because when I fail, it's like, and it's like, how much weight do you want to put under the failure? I don't carry a lot of weight. I don't put a lot of weight on the word failure, because in order to succeed, you have to fail. When you look at, oh my gosh, for the longest time when my son was in high school, I had this thing hanging when you walked into our pantry, there was a bulletin board and I had this thing hailing it. It had all these famous failures. And it talked about Einstein, who was said, he would never read. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Oprah Winfrey was fired as a broadcaster. Walt Disney was told that he didn't have talent, right?
Mhm.
And there was a couple of others. I think Steve Jobs may have been in there as well. But you look at these famous failures, and people have to fail so many times before they succeed.
Yeah.
Like, for me personally, I'm experiencing a lot of success right now. I've been working on this stuff for 34 years. Did I do this overnight? Absolutely not. I've been working on this for 34 years. My
Mhm.
podcast is only 4 years old, but I had one that a few years before I had another one that didn't succeed. Right. So, it's just part of learning. And if you can just embrace those failures and look at it, okay, what can I learn from it? How can I do it differently next time? And then change your game plan, right? Because when you went through my podcast training course, and I say everything is a test. Test it out. If you're not getting results from this, then change it. You have to constantly be growing and adapting. And that's with anything in life. If it's not working, just change it up a little bit.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think, the difference between those who make it and those who don't is the willingness to get up and try again and again and
Yeah.
again and again and again, and to be relentless, because we have a lifetime, you know, but many people will get discouraged when it doesn't seem to be working, and they'll give up. And so I have found so much joy and happiness in the pursuit of my passion, and
Yeah.
treating failure as feedback and just a learning instead of letting it get me down.
I love that. Well, you said you fall down and get back up. And I thought, well, yeah, I was a figure skater and falling is a part of it.
Yes.
So every time I got on the ice to practice, you would fall down at least a dozen times, if not 2 dozen.
Mhm.
You were constantly falling and getting
Yeah.
up and falling and getting up.
And
So,
each time you're a little better and wiser and more experienced. You've made it through
like,
another fall.
oh yeah, I got to do this. Or, oh, I was doing this. I got to do that. Like you just learn, okay, my shoulders weren't level. Like you figure it out and, you try again.
The learning and the
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to touch on the importance of gratitude in achieving happiness.
Mm.
How can someone start incorporating more gratitude in their daily life?
Oh gosh, gratitude is so important. So the first thing is I always like to say, like, you can gratitude your way out of anything. Okay. And I want to urge you, unless it's like a dire situation and you have to get on that call and you got to shift your mindset, definitely, use gratitude. But it's important to feel the feelings and to make sure that you're feeling any sort of pain or, stress, and, feel it first. The reason gratitude is so powerful is because it's a high vibration word. Okay. And when I say vibration, everybody has a vibration. We all have an electromagnetic field that surrounds us. And when it comes to different emotions, you've got fear down here. Gratitude is like way up here. Okay. And so when you're fearful, you're vibrating at a very low frequency. When you're in gratitude, you're vibrating at a very high frequency. And now the reason that's important is because when we're trying to create the life that we want, the universe, I just call it the universe, whatever that is, doesn't understand the difference between positive and negative. It just understands frequency. Okay. So if you're emitting negative frequency, it's going to give you negative frequency back. If you're emitting positive frequency, it's going to give you positive frequency back. Okay. And so when you're feeling fearful, shame, regret, jealousy, bitter, any of those negative emotions, feel it, recognize it. What is this? What's going on? And then you want to use gratitude to shift your frequency to a higher level so that you're back at that state where you're actually able to create and bring really good things back into your life. But gratitude, start out every single morning. Try to think of as many things you're grateful for before you go to bed. Try to fall asleep at night thinking about everything you have to be grateful for, and celebrate your wins and how amazing the day was. And then think about the next day and how grateful you are for the day that you have ahead of you. And by doing that before you go to sleep at night, it's going to help to start rewire your subconscious mind, because in that state right before you fall asleep, that's where your mind really starts to digest things.
Yeah.
And can reprogram things for you.
I love that. And they say, you know, when you focus on the good gets better.
Yep. That's right.
Are
Yeah.
there any daily practices or rituals you recommend for someone looking to achieve a consistent state of peace and happiness?
Yeah. So one is the gratitude. Journaling is another thing that I have been striving for decades. And I always get so far and then I give up, but I'm really committed right now to journaling every day before I go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm on day 10 right now. So stay tuned, Lauren.
Okay. I'll
I'm
check in on
trying again.
you.
But it's so important. And I've known that my whole life. It's a ritual. It's a habit that you have to get into. Definitely the gratitude for me, you know, I call them non-negotiables. I have to get enough sleep. I have to drink enough water. I meditate every single day. It's always trying to improve myself spiritually. I use a lot of mantras throughout the day whenever I recognize any sort of angst or fear. I use multiple different ones. I have a new one that I started using just this week that I love. That's been really effective, because the thing is we're naturally driven to lean towards fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in our DNA. And so that's kind of been the big thing that for me that I'm focusing on right now, is just recognizing at any moment when I'm thinking about something, am I thinking about it from a place of fear or a place of love?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not thinking about it from a place of love, then I make the shift
Mm-hmm.
to push that fear aside.
Yeah. And how does forgiveness come into play here in regard to happiness and in regard to seeing things from love as opposed to fear?
Well, anytime really when you aren't feeling peace within your heart, there's someone or something that you need to forgive. And generally it's yourself. So forgiveness is huge. It, again, if bitterness is a very low vibration feeling and emotion. And so if you're feeling bitter, forgiveness needs to come into play. And I always like to remind people about forgiveness. It's not about the other person. You're not saying that what the other person did, you're not, is okay, or you're not justifying what they did. You're not condoning what they did. What you're doing is you're freeing up the space that they're taking up in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because they could care less whether or not you forgive them. They really don't. They don't care. It's for you. It's only for you. And until you can see that, it's hard. And forgiveness is another thing that you have to practice sometimes every minute of every day. And there have been times, even so much as this year, where I had a situation and it probably took me a good 2 weeks to fully forgive. And that's okay. And just be gentle with yourself. Just because I've been on this journey for 34 years, that doesn't mean that I should this or I should that. No, I'm human just like everyone else. And I have to work on things just as much, sometimes even harder than other people do.
Mm-hmm.
Only because it's what I want so badly. And I can recognize it because of the self-awareness that I have. But then there's times when, I'm like, even last night I was upset with my husband. It took me a good 4 hours. It was 4 hours. I wanted to be upset with him.
Yeah.
I own it. It felt good. It felt really good. I was right.
And it doesn't mean you need to be a pushover, right? Because sometimes it's okay that they upset you. And you deserve to have feelings and emotions about related to
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. And I was right. And and it took me a few hours and I got through it and I'm like, okay, we're good. But it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm human,
Right. We're only
I'm
human.
human.
We're only
I'm
human.
doing the best I can, just like everybody
Yes,
else.
we all are, right? And I think with the
Yeah.
forgiveness piece, when we can shift it from, when you shift it from being upset with someone or angry at what they did and unable to forgive, you are acting as the victim of the situation. But when you can reframe it as I forgive you, now I have the ability to change how I feel and the energy that I put out in my life because I am now in a place of forgiveness.
And you take your power back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
it's a beautiful
Love it.
process, and it's a learning, and it's a lot of it is accountability.
1,000%. For sure. Yeah.
So let's talk about ego
Mm-hmm.
related to forgiveness and happiness. How does ego get in the way of us finding true happiness?
So for me, and this is like the big thing that I have been focused on this year, there's really only two states of being. You're either in consciousness or you're in ego. Now, take it a step further. What is consciousness? That is love. What is ego? That is fear. So again, you're either in fear or you're in love, or you're either in consciousness or you're in ego. And so we are genetically predisposed to leaning towards the ego taking over, to lean towards more fear. And that's just been in our DNA for thousands of years. And it's there as a protection mechanism. It's just today it doesn't serve us. Sometimes it does. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it does serve us. For the most part, it doesn't serve us. And so once you recognize that, oh, that's my ego. When, oh, you can't do that. When you say, oh, I want to do this, and you hear this voice, you can't do that, or you can't do this. It's really just fear coming up, and it's the ego thinking it's trying to protect you. So I always say, put the ego in the back seat because you're the driver. And the ego is like a backseat driver trying to tell you what to do all the time. And if you can just imagine it like that, it's a backseat driver. Tell it to shut up. You're in the driver's seat and you're in control.
Yes.
And zip it, zip it, zip it.
Yeah.
Stop.
Enough of you,
Enough.
Is this me or the voice inside my head?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's really a voice inside your
Right.
head. That's exactly what it is. And it
Yeah.
tries to tell you what to do and how you should feel about yourself, and what it tells you to judge other people. And there's sometimes I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm like, somebody walks in the room and it's like, ugh. And I'm like, stop,
Right.
stop it, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
don't go there. I don't want to go there. Get
Don't
out
want
of
to go
here.
there right now. Yeah, get out of here. Get in
I'm
the
like,
back seat. Shut up.
get in the back seat.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my
that's
God.
not me. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I wouldn't look at that person and make that horrible judgment. And yet it pops into your mind and you're like,
Right.
oh my God, stop.
Yeah.
It's just, nobody wants to talk about that though, Lauren.
I know.
Oh, I would never think that way about somebody else. I'm here to say, I'm here to call bullshit on you because you definitely do. We all do. It crosses our mind.
Let's own it.
Yes.
We're all human. We all are going through the same processes.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
As a former athlete and figure skating coach, you understand the connection between physical activity and mental well-being. Could you discuss how physical activity influences happiness?
Well, for one, it releases endorphins. And so, studies have shown that if somebody is feeling depressed, before you go to the doctor to get on an antidepressant, try exercising every day first, because they say just by exercising, that will help you completely shift your state of mind, because it releases endorphins and it makes you feel really good. You're sweating, you're breathing heavily, right? Getting oxygen. That's why, deep breathing is so important, because you're getting more oxygen to your blood. My gosh, deep breathing is so critical. And I didn't know this until recently. When you first wake up in the morning, that is the most important time to do deep breathing exercises, which is why many elderly die in their sleep, and they die in their sleep between 2 and 5 a.m. And that's because that is the time when you're in your deepest sleep and you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain. So when you wake up in the morning, those deep breaths, and just do like 10 deep breaths to get that oxygen flowing through your body. But that's also why exercise helps so much, because you're getting that oxygen through your body, but also it just feels so good, and do something fun. My gosh, just dance. Who doesn't like to dance, right? Turn on the music and
Dancing.
dance like nobody's watching, right?
I love to dance, and I love blasting music. Also, going outside on a nature walk. It doesn't have to be this
Yes,
like serious high intensity workout, but just move your body.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, for those looking to make a positive change in their life, but feel stuck or unsure where to start, what would be your first piece of advice?
First piece of advice, I think I would go with practicing gratitude. I think it would be gratitude. And I only say that because I had lunch today with, my mom is in a nursing facility right now, just temporarily. And I'm her caregiver. And so my sister and her son, my nephew, came to visit. And he's married and, has kids and stuff. And he was just talking about his wife. And it was just so like, they've got a lot going on. She has health issues. She hasn't been able to find a job because of her health, just all of this stuff. And I started talking to him about gratitude, and it seemed so foreign to him. And I think that like, he's just kind of like your average middle American, doing the grind. He works at Costco, you know, just your average American that's out there trying to make ends meet. And he had never really considered about thinking about gratitude. And that just got me to thinking that I think that it's an easy thing for people to do. And even if you're at a low point in your life and you don't feel like there's anything to be grateful for, because I've been there where what do I have to be grateful for? I have nothing. I have nothing to be grateful for. Well, you do. Can you walk? Okay. Be grateful for your legs. At the very minimum, be grateful that your heart is beating however many beats per minute without you asking it to do so, right? Your heart just works. It just works. You can always find something.
Yeah.
And let me just finish that with, because I talked about this to my nephew today. And that is, I'll never forget an interview I had with a quadriplegic. And she was 30 years old, young, beautiful, just like you, just beautiful. She had an accident, quadriplegic at the age of 30, 24/7 care she needs. She can't do anything by herself. And I said to her, I was like, there must be days where you're like, why me? Out of anybody, right? I would give you permission to every single day. Why me? Why me? And I said, what do you do when you are in those moments of why me? She goes, I talk to a quadriplegic who is worse off than I am.
Chills.
Yeah. And it just puts things in perspective,
There's
Things
always
could always
someone
be worse.
who has more or less than you, always.
Yeah.
And we are here and we're alive, getting to experience aliveness and planet Earth and connecting with others, getting to experience the sun shining or this flower blooming outside.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Oh,
It's incredible.
Sandee, what is next for you?
What is next for me? There's so many great things. Continue with my podcast. I'm launching my show on E360 television. I'm in the last stages. It's taken a lot longer than I had anticipated, but it's not going to be perfect, but it needs to be up to my standard, right? It's not going to be perfect because I don't have a studio to film it in. So it's just, yeah. Another big thing that I'm really excited about is I applied and was accepted to speak at Podfest.
Wow.
Well, and
Congratulations.
their virtual portion of Podfest. And so I was really excited about that. I just found out
Mm,
yesterday, and they didn't
wow.
even send me an announcement. They sent me a calendar invite to come to a meeting. It's like, oh, okay, I guess.
2024.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I have another calendar invite for the actual time I'm speaking in a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, my book series,
Mm,
I'm really
yeah.
excited about that. Yeah, there's just a lot of great things that are coming up.
Spreading
Yeah,
positivity and good vibes.
yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
My favorite saying is "forgive for peace," and just forgive for peace.
Mm.
It's short and sweet. If you're feeling anything, then peace and love in your heart, there's probably somebody or something you need to forgive, and usually it's yourself. So forgive for peace.
Mhm. Beautiful. Thank you. And where can people find you?
At sandeesgarlata.com or Instagram and Facebook. I'm Coach Sandee Sgarlata, and my podcast is Happiness Solved. And you can go to happinesssolved.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search for Happiness Solved, and it'll be there.
Amazing. Thank you, Sandee, for all of your incredible insight and positivity.
Thank you, Lauren. And best of luck with your podcast. And I'm so excited for you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.